Welcome to One Man's Tracks, the secondhand music channel. Thanks to a spot-on suggestion by one of my viewers, I've spent quite a bit of time this year marinating in the magical musical stew that is Beck's peculiar discography. A consummate artist who blazes his own trail through a process of harmoniously linking these old forgotten pathways, producing something new, all while carrying forth the traditional musical spirit. A legend and a visionary, Beck Hansen's ever-broadening repertoire explores such a fantastic range of human experience, creating these auditory, emotional connections and tapping into a unique lane through his stylized blurring of genre boundaries. So I've been fervorously testing to identify which one of these secret concoctions is the ideal flavor for me to spice up my moods, and for a man who can pull off essentially every outfit he tries on with an insightful ease, it sure was not an easy task picking a single sauce to sample from this sonic chef's overflowing book of recipes. From his raw, unbounded beginnings and anti-folk ferocity on records like Golden Feelings and Soul Manure to his far-out fusioneering on records like Mellow Gold and Odelay, all the way to those introspective, reflective Beck albums you get like Mutations and Sea Change and Morning Phase, as well as this more modern, glossy, cleaned up, atmospheric, poppy Beck you get on a new record like Colors or Hyperspace, and somehow even more in between. It's unbelievable. I think it's pretty rare to find an artist who can consistently create these new styles while still managing to connect with his audience and the popular landscape of music as a whole. If you've watched my worst to best video, then you already know that there's just one album out of Beck's 14 released so far that I can't really get down with, and even still I have to admit that it's pretty well executed, and I'm sure it is somebody else's all-time favorite Beck album, just due to that universal quality that Beck's sound seems to hold. He's got just this hugely impressive and diverse catalog that is still somehow just the surface of released and unreleased and collaborative Beck works. My goodness, this man has put out a lot of songs and just had just incredible creative output throughout his entire lifetime, and it seems people are continuously digging up old tidbits and new real secret stuff. And if you are really interested, let me know. Maybe I'll make another Beck video where we dive into the EPs, the obscurities, the fun facts about Beck. But my goodness, there is a lot to go through with this guy, and I'm getting a little overwhelmed, so it might take a while, but really, let me know. I think this man is fascinating, and I'd love for more people to know more about him. But for now, today's video is going to be focused on one release in particular, my current favorite Beck album. It's sultry, it's funky, it's totally wild, produced by Mickey Petralia, Tony Hoffer, the Dust Brothers, and the man himself. It's Beck's 7th LP, released on November 23rd, 1999 through Geffen subsidiary DGC Records. Here's Beck's Midnite Vultures! Recorded between July of 98 and June of 99, only briefly interrupted by the quickly recorded and litigious Mutations. Midnite Vultures was originally intended to be a double album and is the spiritual successor of that best-selling Beck album, Odelay. It provides that unforgettable outing that follows up one of the 90s most imaginative and idiosyncratic releases. This project is certainly a lot. It's immediately over the top with a tongue-in-cheek exuberance whose funky, smooth rhythm and blues might have you scratching your head a bit, but in my case, it's got me jumping on my bed. I don't understand how the critics at the time thought this wasn't a great record, because I feel like it delivers with a superabundance of zest. I'm sure you can handle these vibrant, up-tempo, 70s-fueled electro-pop earworms crafted by one of the most creative singer-songwriters of his generation. So let's quickly now run through the fantastic songs that make up the track list of this groovy, extravagant, postmodern pop funkscapade. Starting out with the hedonistic opener, let's dive headlong into Sex Laws. Fabulously reckless, Beck kicks things off with a tremendous amount of fanfare on this somewhat silly, flashy piece of euphoric dance pop. From there, we get to move on to the first of this album's incredible ands. It's Nicotine and Gravy. This and has a funky hip-hop backbeat, some super slick synth work that jams over top of an entire Beckian big band that he's assembled. It's got the first instance of those irresistible layered vocals he does with such magnificence. It's this experimental, extravagant odyssey, and it's fantastic. Keeping up the funk, we move on to the catchy breakdowns and sing-along chorus of Mixed Business that grooves this thing right along. There's this brief robo-futuristic sort of techno detour called Get Real Paid, and it's the perfect time for me to mention just how shining the bass playing across the entirety of Midnite Vultures is. It's amazing. Justin Meldal-Johnson just does an amazing job, and in this particular case with Get Real Paid, he's really one of the only non-mechanical factors and imbues this track with just the right amount of funkin' human exuberance. Due to the nature of the project, it is a little tough to pick a goofiest song, but maybe most ironic would go to Hollywood Freaks. It pokes fun with this superficial, poetic pantomime playing over a low-key hip-hop breakbeat. It's got great writing, creative flows, just doesn't bring a whole lot musically to bring me up like the rest of the tracks on this project do, so it falls to maybe my least favorite on the album. Even still, though, I get so much out of it, and I'm so glad that this project has so much to give. From there, we get picked up and launched into the stratosphere with radiant falsettos. We get to my favorite of the ants, and probably the most fun I've ever had listening to this brilliant man. Ooh, ooh, ooh! It's Peaches and Cream! My garbage man bias just shines through as I belt this one out every time I hear it. My goodness, do I love it. It lifts me up, grooves me to its sensations, and just overwhelms me with its tremendous layers. On to Broken Train now, another one with primo evocative Beck lyricism. It takes the listener on a seriously whimsical rail journey. Then we get to the third and final of the fantastic ands. It's the psychedelic rock and Milk and Honey. The fusion maestro takes over once again and creates a song that the 70s wish they could have had, but like those late millennium reviewers, they probably couldn't have handled it. Beautiful Way features some backup vocals from the wonderful Beth Orton. It's this hazy, kickback, sort of enveloping, bluesy, psychedelic atmosphere that would not feel really out of place in a foregone era, yet still brings together a lot of great ideas to give it a vibe all its own. The last couple tracks bring up the energy once again, first with this incomprehensible guitar-affected alt-rocker called Pressure Zone, and then with the dripping seduction on the hilariously smooth closer Deborah that sees the Flight of the Conchords taking notes. Because of that similarity, I really would have sworn that Mikey was the producer on this track, but he was just in the back taking notes, I guess, while the Dust Brothers were putting it down. It is so much, but it's absolutely ingenious. Lady, step inside my Hyundai and let's groove. It takes pages from all sorts of brilliant books, from the likes of Prince and Funkadelic, the Beatles, to the convict R. Kelly. The list goes on, but the results, they speak for themselves. Midnite Vultures is too damn hot, boldly glimmering with a striking opulence and bound with the kinkiest melodies that Beck has ever produced. perhaps a little bit too much on the eccentric side for some, but for those of us who like to bask in the fantastical funk and zany falsettos, then this is the Beck for us. He's just so iconic. Beck's persistent ability to create these honest, cohesive combinations that convey humanity's counterintuitive and convoluted continuation, all while carving his very own sound out and just using this innate musical ability and incessant creative drive to produce just masterpiece after masterpiece. He has this way of saying nothing yet a whole lot without divulging much at all. He encapsulates earnest characters and expresses difficult universal truths. He transforms these nonsensical sequiturs into these relatable, moody stories using his whimsy, detached yet impassioned delivery. That's about the best I can do for now when it comes to summarizing this sonic virtuoso. It's a long-winded way of saying I think Beck is something really special and that I feel fortunate to live in a world where I might get lucky enough to get to see him live one of these days. I was quite literally just days away from coughing up the cash to go see him play, open up for Arcade Fire just later this month, but he pulled out of that tour, so thankfully I hadn't committed just yet. I'm sorry for everyone who was looking forward to see Beck and had tickets already, but thankfully my frugality and my lack of commitment finally pays off for once in my life, so unfortunately no Beck now, but fingers crossed, maybe I'll see a Beck 2023 tour popping up one of these days. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Midnite Vultures, or really anything Beck related down in the comments. Tell me your favorite album or song, or brag about a time you got to see him live. Maybe even you want to sneak me one of those secret songs that you don't think I've heard yet. I'd appreciate the heck out of it. Leave a like for making it this far in the video. Consider subscribing for more throwback music review madness. I think you might like my Beck worst to best list over here, and there's a video that YouTube thinks you'll like right there. Thank you, and have a wonderful day, guys. Take good care. Oh, such a beautiful way to break your heart.